What's up, guys? Is silver the trade of 2021? Today, we're going to talk about that. There's a couple of different angles of approach that we need to take to draw comparison to previous price action and previous fundamental movement behind the price of silver. But personally, I do think silver is still at $26.75 today, still undervalued, and I think the same for gold. Today's video is going to be specifically about silver. We're going to talk about Silver Thursday as we come up on the 41st anniversary of that very famous day. We'll talk about the Hunt brothers and what happened there if you're not familiar. And I also just want to share with you an article that comes out talking about a JP Morgan ex-managing partner's idea of where he thinks silver can go. It aligns very much with how I feel, so I want to voice that to you guys. But if you're new, my name is Austin Silver. I appreciate you being here. This video is not going to be a typical Forex trade recap. We're going to talk a little bit bigger picture here, kind of stepping back and looking at where we can be diversifying and putting our money to work for us for the long term. You guys know, if you follow me on Instagram or you follow me on Twitter, I've been talking a lot about precious metals and why I think they're undervalued. That is going to come full circle specifically today in this silver video. But before we get into that, let's talk about Silver Thursday. So we're going to look at this article here from Investopedia, and we're also going to look at an article from Wikipedia. I know, the arbiter of truth here on the internet, but it's just to get the point across since I wasn't too familiar with exactly what happened here when the Hunts cornered the silver market, and I wanted to just kind of give you guys an easy summary. So basically what happened is you have these three brothers, Nelson Hunt, William Hunt, and Lamar Hunt. They're the sons of Haroldson Hunt, who was an oil tycoon in Texas. And what these guys did was they took some of their fortune from their dad and they leveraged against that fortune to buy as much silver as possible. They had accumulated a multi-billion-dollar position in the silver market. You can actually see here, at the point of like its peak, their position was worth about $4.5 billion. What they were saying is that they actually controlled 1/3 of the silver market that existed in the world. The price of silver had moved, if you look here, from $6 an ounce in January of 1979. Just over a year later, it was at $49 an ounce. So that's a 700% increase. That's typically what we see when we see these squeezes or these bubbles. And what ended up happening was because they were buying so much of it on leverage, they ended up overexposing themselves. And when the government finally stepped in, as you can see here, it says Uncle Sam steps in. The government stepped in, stopped the longs from being purchased, basically. Same thing we saw a couple of weeks ago with GameStop. The government still can do whatever they want, right? They can still do this in any market. So they stopped the Hunts from continuing to buy on margin, which caused a panic. People heard rumors that the Hunts were cornered and the price dramatically fell. It actually says here, the price began to fall, dropping over 50% in just 4 days. So if we look at the silver all-time chart, you can see that squeeze happening right here, where we hit the peak at $49.45 in January of 1980, but then very quickly after that, you can see Tuesday, April 29th. So what's that? 4 months later, we're back down to $13 an ounce. And then by 2 years later, 2.5 years later, we went from 50 to $5.97, just about $6 an ounce. So a huge drop here. Now, why that's important to understand is because what we're seeing today in the price action movement from silver is much different than this squeeze. This squeeze is market manipulation. I believe what you're seeing here on the right side of the chart, where you see, in my opinion, a lot more stable price action movement, and of course more volume since about 2006, what you're seeing there is driven by, in my opinion, the green energy movement. We know that electric vehicles and wind energy, solar energy, all of that requires more silver than anything we were building in the early 90s, late 80s, and even early 2000s, even with computers. I think it's the green energy stuff that really requires more of these precious metals, and that's why you're seeing the value start to increase. So let's talk about this article. This is on Kitco News, pretty reliable resource if you ask me. And what this is saying, I'll zoom in for you. Move this over. Whoops. Like this. so you can see. So it says silver is the best trade. It's sporadic prices, but it could hit $60 this year, says this ex-JP Morgan managing director. What he's basically saying is that after receiving a wave of retail attention earlier this year and briefly bouncing over $30 an ounce, silver's mainstream media coverage is starting to fade. But investors that are keen are still buying up the physical metal, which is a sign that the physical metal squeeze is far from over. If you scroll down a little bit, he says, Dean doesn't rule out silver hitting over $60 sometime this year. Silver could trade at $40 to $50 and maybe even $60, he said. It's important to remember that silver is a highly volatile metal, right? We've seen that now on that chart. And even if it does reach 60, that doesn't mean it will end the year there. If you look at a year start to year end chart of silver, it is very volatile some years. I think that if you scroll down and read why he explains like where this is rooted in, it kind of ties it together though. He says the catalyst that will finally boost silver and gold substantially higher this year is a weaker US dollar. This could happen later this year if the economic recovery slows and inflation continues to rise, because silver and gold need a weak dollar. If we see deteriorating economic conditions while inflation continues to move higher, the Fed won't be able to move rates higher fast enough, and by leaving rates low and inflation high, we could get a much weaker dollar and higher prices in metals. Now, that I think we all can agree on as something happening, as we've seen the dollar index continue to move lower and we've seen the cost of goods go higher. So we know the value of our dollar is going down. Real quick, before I keep going, I don't want to forget, today's sponsor is Surfshark. They are the VPN that I'm using for all of my devices. Riley and I love the program, and they're hooking you guys up with an awesome deal. So you can go to the link here on the screen or click the link in the description. You're going to get 30 days of a free trial, so you can try it out totally free. You're going to get 83% off, and you're going to get your first 3 months free. It's a no-brainer. So if you're out using public Wi-Fi, you must be protecting your data, and Surfshark is a really easy way to do that. So I want to hook you guys up. So again, the link is in the description for the Surfshark deal. Now, if you continue to follow me here, we're looking at the Investopedia article again. It says here, when oil tycoon H.L. Hunt, so the dad of the Hunt brothers, died in 1974, he left his family billions. 2 of the sons took their oil money inheritance and put it in the commodities market. The Hunt brothers believed that inflation would result in silver becoming a haven, just like its more expensive cousin, gold. Nelson Hunt, in particular, believed there would be inflationary pressures that would destroy the value of any investments denominated or tied to paper currency. Now, doesn't that sound very similar to this article here, what we're seeing this guy who worked at JP Morgan say? Plus what we hear a lot of people saying just because of what's going on right now. Now, how can we take advantage of this and where do we see it going? Well, like I said, if we look at the silver price chart and we just look at it since 2006-7, we can see a lot more stability and also more volatility, which is good because I think that's going to help us move higher. On top of that, just looking back here, if you look to where this JP Morgan analyst is saying to take advantage of it, he's saying either buying the physical silver or SLV is how he would do it. So for me, I'm using XAGUSD to do my analysis on silver, but I am buying SLV. You can see it here on my stocks watch list. I'm buying SLV, PSLV, and MTA. So I just want to touch on those very quickly here for you guys. Now, if we go to the daily time frame, I'm going to move my head out of the way for you in a second here. If we go to the daily time frame here on silver, what you can see is that push to $30 that we were talking about in the article back in August of 2020. And since then, it showed a lot of support to the low 20s, 21.90, 22. With support there, and if you zoom out, even stronger support on the higher time frame, if you go to the monthly, you can see even more support here at 20. So with support at 20, 21, on the daily time frame, we're definitely looking for this to come and break above 28 and then above 30 within the next few months, hopefully within the next few weeks. You can clearly see the uptrend, not just going back into November. You can see the base in November. This is going back to the coronavirus crash. This has been a great buy since last March, basically a year ago. And I think it's setting itself up to go to $60 an ounce, if not higher. And with that, you're going to see gold move as well. Gold is definitely undervalued in the bigger picture. Right now, it's $17.36 an ounce. Gold is super undervalued. I think we're going to see gold over 2,000 in no time, honestly, once we see the slowing economic conditions actually be reflected in the dollar index. So if we look at the dollar index, Part of this whole thesis is that the dollar will continue to move lower, and that will drive up the value in silver and silver stocks, but not in the same way that it was squeezed by the Hunt brothers, in a more natural way, in a more proper way, you would think, with just the deteriorating economic conditions. So if we look at the dollar index, you can see the downtrend, just a simple trend line, right? This pennant formation, if we can take out 90 again, it's going to be very hard to see it coming back towards 91. I think if we break 90 within the next few weeks or months on the dollar index, you might see it retest the mid 90s somewhere in here, but then probably make a lower move to 88 or 87. That's what I think is going to happen. And we're going to translate that into shorting USD pairs and buying Euro pairs, specifically Euro USD. This is something that I've been looking at for long opportunities almost every day over the last couple of weeks. And if you go back, even just looking at the last NFP decision here, because we have NFP coming up this week, this NFP decision changed the trend on Euro USD from its previous movement. It dropped all week until the non-farm decision. The non-farm decision comes out and it sets the trend for the entire next 2 weeks. So I think this week we're going to see what Euro USD wants to do based on those non-farm numbers, because it's been kind of sideways since last month's non-farm. And I think if we see that continue to push Euro USD up on the news this week, the dollar index lower, then we're going to see this silver and precious metals idea come to life. So I want to know in the comments, let me know if you guys agree or disagree with me. I want to know, are you buying silver? Are you buying SLV? Are you trying to get involved in the metal market? Or are you sitting on the sidelines still trying to just be involved in stocks? I just want to see where you guys are at. Just let me know if you agree or disagree with me too. I'm always down to have a dialogue, and I think there's a lot of smart people that watch my videos, so I want to know what you guys think. If you did enjoy the video, if this gets your wheels going, maybe gets you investing into some precious metals for the long term, comment that below as well, just so I know. I appreciate you guys as always. Make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video.